is BJ Counsel. I view the world through the lens of having been followed by a white clerk as a child while shopping in a five and dime. I'm a retired police executive and own UN50, which gives guidance on surviving interactions with police.
I'm Harmony Chavis, and I view the world through the lens of one of the most misunderstood and diverse generations in our nation's history. I'm a social worker and a believer of radical kindness and love as modalities of healing.
My name is Andrew Counsel. I view the world through the lens of a generational camera phone. I wake up as a black male and go to bed as a black male. I am surviving this never-ending court case we commonly call life in the best way I know how.
All right, so welcome back to folks that have just joined us for the first time. Thanks for joining us, and those of you that are hopefully some of my faithful fans that are tuning in to UN50. And for those of you that don't know, we broadcast out of Durham, the Bull City, and we've been doing this for a while. It's UN50. My name is BJ Counsel, and UN50 is an organization that teaches people how to safely interact with law enforcement. We don't just talk about law enforcement, we talk about mental health, we talk about schooling, we talk about all kinds of stuff, because as far as this organization is concerned, the issues that in particular that affect marginalized and black and brown bodies is larger than law enforcement. My UN50 is good for anybody. Anybody can learn from it, and that's what we try to do. Been doing that since 2015. So tonight, what we have is a guest who hopefully some of you also tuned into our webinar and met one of my panelists who's on again tonight. We've had a couple on, so you can get to go know them a little better, because we really didn't have a chance to kind of get into deep conversations, though we did have conversations about what they saw from their perspective. And if you remember, one of the things that was key for me was education. That keeps coming up, and for me, and when we did the webinar, we were talking about if you educate individuals, it gives them a solid foundation if you do that early on. So I have one of my panelists here tonight is Lisa L.A. Jones. She is a retired federal prison warden. She is also in seminary school, I think still in seminary school. Yeah, still in seminary school. And she is also co-executive director for Hayti Reborn. And the portion is under that larger umbrella, but it's called Justice Movement. I want to ask her to talk to you about that a little bit. She and Stephen Chalmers, who's past police chief here, are co-executive directors. And I kind of have to say this, LA kind of dragged me along to be a part of it. And I'm excited to be a part of it, because as she puts it, it's heart work. And and that's kind of, if anybody out there knows me, I'm all about the community. So this just kind of continues to do what I've done for the last 30 years. So I'm happy. I'm blessed to have met her. I have never met her before. Didn't know anything about her. And I am just happy to be able to say that I know LA. So LA, thank you for saying yes.
Well, thank you for saying yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
We're working with each other.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. So go ahead and just kind of tell the guests a little bit about your past history. I definitely want them to talk about it, especially being a black woman and a warden at a federal prison. You went into the seminary, and I just kind of want you to give them a little brief history about who you are, where you come from, and then we'll get into some conversation.
Sure. As you said, I'm L.A. Jones, Lisa, and I'm originally from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Grew up in the woods and in a four-room lean-to shack with holes in the floor.
Oh,
and
here we
stand
go.
in the front door and look out the back door.
There you go.
And no running water, and
Wow.
we used an outhouse.
There you go. There you go. Wait a minute. I got to stop you there. See, I'm gonna tell you how bougie my family was. We had a farm, right? And next to the field, we had an outhouse. It was a two-seater. I'm just saying.
Oh, y'all were uptown. Y'all were uptown.
Look, bougie. We had two-seaters by the field while we out there bringing them back.
Two-seaters around my way. Oh, buddy.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's
so yeah. And I was the first member of my family to go to college.
Wow.
I don't know what put in my mind to go to college. I was never encouraged to or told that I had to. I just knew that I was. And In fact, just to show kind of where we come from as a people, I didn't know enough about college to know that I needed to apply. A
Wow.
guidance counselor never asked me about going to college.
Mm.
And I showed up the day that college started and went to what I learned later was the registrar's office and said, I want to go to school here. So that's actually the way that I
Wow.
got into college.
Wow. Wow.
Just a long history of the abuses that come along with growing up in poverty, especially for Black and brown girls.
Mm.
I was the oldest of 6, born to a 14-year-old mother who had been victimized herself.
Mhm.
My sire was 40 plus,
Wow.
and a member of the family. So it wasn't an easy beginning. Grew up with a lot of trauma and a lot of troubles. And of course, I was raised old school Baptist. We didn't go to therapists. I was raised to believe that only white people went to therapy.
Yes.
And that we took it to the altar and left it there. You go and you pray, and if you're not feeling better, then that means that you either didn't have enough faith or you didn't pray the right prayer.
Right.
So, I never got any help for any of my trauma until I was an adult.
Yeah.
I left school, went into the Army, because I felt like that my family needed an income more than I needed an education. Did that for a few years, and then I went and worked for the Texas Department of Corrections. At the time, is TDC, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice now, Justice Division. And while I was in there, especially being in Texas, I learned that the law wasn't the same for Black and brown people that it was for white people. I'll never forget how shocked I was when I found out that there were 2 inmates who were co-defendants, one Black, one white, and they did the exact same crime. Both of them had the exact same thing in their hand. If you looked at their files, they looked identical, but yet the person of color, he had twice the time that the white boy had.
Wow.
And I just never really understood that. So it was very fascinating for me. I always felt like that the real way to understand why the law seemed to work differently for Black and brown people, I felt like it was to be inside the system to learn. I've always been able to understand systems. How some kids, they have this mechanical thing where they'll see something and they can take it apart and then put it back together to see how it works. That's the way my mind works with systems. I have the ability to kind of take them apart and put them back together to see how they really work. And I didn't like what I found. So I continued to do the work because I felt like that as I increased in the ranks, that I would be able to have a say-so over how an organization that I was in charge of, how it was run.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
how long were you a warden, and where were you a warden?
Oh, I was an associate warden and interim warden at Jessup, Georgia. I was there from 2015 to 2018. I was getting ready to make my next move, which would have been a permanent warden spot here in Butner, North Carolina. And the voice, the one, said I was done. I just knew all of a sudden one day that I was done. it was difficult, BJ, because I sat and watched a whole lot of young people come back into prison, and I was always curious about why. Why were you coming back? And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
my master's degree is in criminal justice. It has a specialization in corrections and also in behavioral studies. So
Okay.
I've always been fascinated with the why.
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah, when they were coming back, I was like, why? And what I
Yeah.
realized was
Yeah.
that the prison reform that was going on in the system, it was really just surface, because there was no reentry reform.
Mhm.
So when you release a bunch of individuals at one time and they come out into the community, and there is not a network, a system of services or resources for them, you doom them to
Mhm.
repeat past behaviors,
Yeah.
if for no other reason than they don't know anything differently.
Mhm.
And also because the world keeps moving. It doesn't
Yeah.
stop. When someone goes to prison, the world
Yeah.
doesn't stop.
That's right.
So think about how quickly
Mhm.
technology moves for those of us that are out here in it.
Right.
So can you imagine, you're gone, even if you're gone for 3 or 4 years,
Right.
the technology is completely different when
Yes.
you come back,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And depending upon what you did while you were incarcerated, as far as obtaining a skill or something of that nature,
Yeah.
you come back out and you're lost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
I was actually fortunate enough. I was the only Black female to be the captain in a penitentiary
Mhm.
in the history of the Department of Justice when I was in there.
Wow. Cool.
So not only was it a challenge because of race, but it was a color because I was not a man. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it was a lot. I learned a lot while I was there.
Good.
And but at the same time, I was extremely fortunate because it enabled me to feed my family and to feed them well. So,
Yeah. 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 Thank you for that. Yeah. You've done a lot, seen a lot, and you care a lot, obviously. And the fact, when we get to the end of this, I kind of want you to talk about the system that you guys are creating that you just talked about for those individuals who are returning to our community. What I also would like to say is that I often use the word I enjoyed being law enforcement, but I also was one of those individuals like, so why do I keep arresting you?
right.
Why do you keep doing
That's
that?
right. I
And
want to know why. Well,
yeah.
BJ, it's because there are some of us who, they use the old metaphor about you come to a stream that's filled with dead floating fish.
Right.
And, depending upon who we are is the way that we respond. Some people immediately go over there and say, poor fish, and they
Right.
start scooping the fish out
Right.
of the water. Some of them are like, oh my goodness, these decaying bodies are going to be a negative impact on this ecosystem within the water. And so they start looking at that and taking samples of the water and researching all these things.
Yeah.
You and I know from past conversations, we're the people that hang a left and go upstream because we want to know what's killing the fish.
Yeah.
And I really need to understand why.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now, there's a really big, there's a lot of conversation about gun violence.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about gun violence? How are we going to control gun violence? Well, I'll be honest. I'm also, I believe that we draw to us that which we put our energy into. I believe in the law of attraction. I believe that the more we fight against gun violence, the more we draw that to us, especially when I don't believe that gun violence is the problem. I believe that gun violence is a result of the problems. So I feel like the way that we deal with gun violence is by getting to the root cause, as I mentioned about my interest in behavioral studies.
Right.
I think we get to the root cause,
Mhm.
and those are the things that we have to address
Yes.
In order to heal our community.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been law enforcement. I'm now in seminary, but I will tell you, I believe that in order for, if we think that it is either or, either your
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter or your, back the blue, then I think that's a false choice. I don't believe it has to be either or. I believe that we can believe that Black Lives Matter, stand up and work toward that, and at the same time support ethical, law-abiding law enforcement who are out there doing their job to protect the community.
Mhm.
It can be both.
Yeah.
And until we realize that that we need that bridge, we're in a downward spiral. And you can't police it away, and you can't just love it away either.
Yeah.
There has to be, you've got to offer love with accountability. And that's one of the ways that we look at things over at the Hayti Reborn Justice Movement. Some people are going to have to go to prison.
Yeah.
They just are. You can't kill another person and think that it's okay.
Right.
Okay, because it's not. And but when they come out of prison, they've paid their debt to society.
That's right.
And therefore they are entitled, or should be, to the same rights and liberties as the rest of us. I'm taken back to my grandmother. One of the first things, my grandmother taught me this better than anybody else in the world. Now, some folks may not understand, but I come from the old school of corporal punishment. Okay. My grandmother would get a switch in a minute.
Right.
So, it was that, look, I told you that if you do this, this is going to be the consequence. So when I did it, which inevitably I did,
right.
earned every whooping I ever got, I earned it. When I did that, I would get punished. But then she would turn around 10 minutes later and say, come on, baby, get something to eat.
Right.
Because it was over.
Right.
Can you imagine the life we would be living if we were all still held accountable for every mistake that we made in our lives?
Right. Yeah.
There'd be no success.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And I know about the whippings too. And don't be bringing them back in small either.
You better not. You better not. Because if she has to go get it, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's gonna be a treat. It's gonna be a treat. So what I want to
worse than that was sending one of your siblings to get it for you.
Oh yeah.
Boy, they would come back with the treat.
Yeah, exactly. So what I also want to just kind of talk about is that, the webinar that we've had and we talked about, and what we feel, at least from my perspective and our perspective, what was that we felt like, what I see when I go to calls, substance abuse, mental health, domestic violence, lack of education. So for me, at least at that ground level, so I kind of want to hear, the individuals that you were working with in the prison or kept coming back, what was it that you feel like was kind of the root cause of that? What was it that was lacking that they, when they came out, they couldn't get it, or they didn't have it before they came in, and definitely obviously they didn't get it when they got back out the first time. So I just kind of want to talk about, what, and build on what we talked about at the webinar, is what is it that keeps continually pushing Black and brown folks and folks into the judicial system and prison, from your perspective?
Oh, wow. BJ, that is the wow, is all I'm going to say is wow. It is a multifaceted problem, which is one of the things that makes it so difficult to address.
Exactly.
A couple of things off the top of my head. Number one, mass incarceration. Mass incarceration created a void out in the community. I always say that not only are the people who commit the crime not only are they justice involved, but then their entire family, to include their children, the children of the incarcerated,
Yep.
they
Yep.
become justice
But
involved.
wait a minute, before you even go in for, I want you to say that again. No,
That-
I mean, not, people don't really think about it. I mean, they're like, well, your
not
daddy,
only
they don't
not
even
only
think about
is it
it.
the individuals that commit
Yes.
crime,
Yes,
it's their families and
Yes.
especially their children
children,
who
yes.
become justice involved.
Yeah.
And children, they truly are the most innocent of victims.
Mhm.
They can't control what their parents do. They
That's right.
can't control the life or the family that they were born into. They
Right.
have no help. So what they do is they end up growing up in an environment that is not conducive to them learning and eating healthily and reading and things like that. Now, don't get me wrong. As I always say, I do not speak for all Black people. I am me. Okay.
Right. Oh yeah.
And right now, I am not speaking that this is the way of all Black children or brown children, but I have seen it time and time again. And when you're dealing with the effects of mass incarceration. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the parent that's left home, whether it be the mother or the father, doesn't love them. What they find themselves having to do is to be both parents. They find themselves having to go out and work twice as hard, and then not only take care of those children, but also send money to the institution so that their significant other can have money on the books.
Yep.
We can all sit down and talk for hours about whose fault that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to tell you whose fault it is not. And that's those children.
Right.
It is not those children's fault.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So when you have that vacuum and then those kids grow up wanting, whether it be attention, whether it be money,
right.
just love.
Yes.
And then one parent is gone and the other is working, just trying to survive.
Yep.
That child is going to look out and they're going to look at whoever's going to show them some love.
Yes.
Sometimes, unfortunately, it's the local dope deal.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's the local gang that comes along and is a family to them, the family that has the time and attention for them that they want and that they're not getting from anywhere else. So mass incarceration, and that's just a tip of the iceberg. We're not even going to talk about the socioeconomic devastation that comes to communities when we have a mass exodus of able-bodied, strong, working people, especially men.
Yeah.
So, that's one thing. Another thing is the historic criminalization of Black and brown skin. The criminalization of drug abuse, of mental health or mental illness. And unfortunately, some of these very children that we were talking about, BJ, become the ones that end up with untreated mental illness,
right.
that end up finding some peace of mind.
Yeah.
But they find it in the bottom of a bottle of alcohol, or they find it in pills, or they find it in some other type of drug. They find it in illicit behavior because they feel this camaraderie with the group that they're running around with in the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, those are just a few.
No, and I mean, but see, I think for me, and obviously for the both of us, the reason we try to do these podcasts and have these conversations is to let general Joe Blow public know this is what we deal with. I was just talking to somebody the other day. I said, I do my little presentations. Really, y'all ain't the one I need to talk to. You know, when it comes down to it, y'all ain't the one I need to talk to, but y'all need to understand who I do talk to and who the police. I'm talking to the kids, but I mean, it's just, you know, I'm glad we're having this conversation, because when you were talking about the parent in or person in prison and the one that's home trying to do all that, that speaks so much to what I see out on the front line in law enforcement. You know, it's like, you know, mama doing all she can do, or daddy doing all she can do. They ain't home, so now the kids outside. We dealing with them as a popo, right? And you're right. They find whatever they're gonna do, and then they have to listen to a mother that has several children, and she says to you, child A, gotta let him go, because I got 4 more. I done lost him. I mean, a mother says this out loud.
And it's
I have,
heartbreaking.
I mean, she's like, it is. It's like, I got 4 kids and I tried, I'm gonna have to let that one go. I'm gonna have that because I got 4 more. I mean, she's making this decision to try to at least try to save these 4, because she couldn't take, people don't understand that. That's real.
Where
That's
she
real.
feels like that the needs of the many have to outweigh the needs of the few. And the one that is the few,
crazy.
You know, we're talking about children, young people who grow into adults who are broken.
Yes.
Who are broken.
Yes.
It's not, there were so many times when we had individuals who were within the institution who were severely mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
Incarcerating them was doing nothing.
Nothing
at all.
Nothing.
So, I mean, you know, a lot of it, and that's why I said it's multifaceted, a lot of it is policy related as well. A lot of it is related to the politics that get played with the lives of average citizens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the politics that get played with those of us that they feel are disposable.
Yeah.
Those that look like us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's so difficult. And then what happens is we're told by those people to blame each other because our life isn't what we want it to be.
Yeah.
Because when we're blaming each other, we take our eye off the money.
Take your eye off.
And those with the money, those are really the individuals that we have to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're all in this pot together.
We are. And you talk about taking your eyes off the prize. And then one of the other things that we talked about a little bit, I talked about at the end of the webinar, is folks, y'all got to vote.
Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I get, you know, folks, well, I don't want to, but yeah, boo, you do. You got to vote. I mean, I hear, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, vote.
And it's more than just the presidential election.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't even care if you make that no more. You need to take a look. You need
a president can get away with anything.
Yeah.
As long as he has enough support.
Yeah. Yeah. So
from senators and congressmen to get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean,
that's where the power is.
Yeah. And I think the work that you do, I do, and the work that some of these other women that do, I mean, we're on the ground. And that's kind of why we did the webinar. It's like, these are Black women on the ground, like you, that've seen this stuff up close and personal. And I want to educate folks, and we got to understand that this is real. This is day in and day out. And we got to figure out, we got to help our folks. We got to help our folks. We can't just keep saying, oh, no, we got to help this child. And somebody put it to me like this. They were like, go to elementary, because that's, and start there. Because that's called, this is an educator. She said that's proactive. And then when you get to middle school, that's intervention. She didn't even say anything about high school, because I think we all understand that at some point, if you get beyond that, I mean, because you're pushing it at middle school nowadays, you know, in high school, I'm not saying they're all lost souls, but what she's saying, proactive down here, elementary. Come on in here, let's get this done. Let's teach it. Let's make it easy for them to understand. It's okay to go to a counselor. Let's make people in that space available to them, to that entire family that's coming in every day with this kid. You know, that it's okay, Black folks, to lay down on the couch every now and then and do that. I'm okay taking it to the altar.
Look, but you gotta do it. I had to take it somewhere.
You know, but what somebody said, with that faith, got to do a little work.
That's right.
That faith, you gotta do a
Oh
little work.
yeah, even John Lewis and others, they always talked about you got to pray with your feet moving. You got to pray with your feet. You
Yeah,
can't,
yeah, yeah.
you
We ain't
know,
gonna pray our way out of this.
or for those that believe in the Bible, I mean, that faith without works is dead. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to get your hands dirty and move your
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about. I want you to talk about the justice movement, because I don't want to end without doing that. But I kind of want to, from your perspective, because I know I've been around you long enough. You're all in it. It's out the passion. I used to tell Steve his shoes squeak with community police when I was working with it. Right? You just ooze with this heart and want to do right for stuff, and I appreciate that. I mean, I'm learning enough. I enjoy being in your space and everything. So thank you for that. I mean, it's this is what I like doing, and you're giving me an opportunity to do that. But just what's it going to take for us to be able to, for us to hear that it's us. It's our moment to do something, because you know what I'm saying? We're in this space right now. Stuff is just like, oh, and it's up to us. And that's when I say us, Black and brown folks, because ain't nobody killing nobody. But you can talk about me and the popo shooting somebody 16 times in the back. Like, I'm down in Kinston right now, and I don't even know when the last time they shot somebody black. But I can probably tell you when somebody black shot somebody black. Mm-hmm. So what I want to ask is, what do you think what is it that's going to get folks to go, oh, okay. Oh, I know. What's it going to take?
Wow.
From your perspective.
I personally believe that when a Black person shoots another Black person, that we are killing ourselves, that we are, that we're looking in a mirror, and that is painful to do that. Unfortunately, we're out there, we're fighting over land that does not belong to us. We'll say my neighborhood, my block, my whatever, it's not. Doesn't belong to us. We built this country, but yet we don't stand in our power and our purpose enough to put our shoulders back and say, yeah, I built this country, and we can do it again, and we can do it a different way. And we don't have, I have a saying, that most people kind of understand, and you've probably heard it being in the office, but that's that success is the greatest revenge. I understand being mad. I understand being angry. I understand being frustrated. There's so many times, I mean, I can have whatever job, whatever career I want, but when the police get behind me, or when someone goes to stop me or something, I'm Black first all day long. All day. And it's frightening in this country. But what we have to realize is the powers that be want us hopeless. They want us to feel hopeless, because when we feel hopeless, we turn on ourselves, we turn on each other. That's what we do when we're hopeless. If we would ever stop and stand in our own purpose, in our own glory, realize that each and every one, let me tell you something, there is nothing that a politician hates worse than for the public to get pissed off. Nothing.
Right.
Because then, right at that moment, we are basking in our power. We know, and I'm not talking about burning anything, blowing anything up, rioting, hurting, or shooting police. I'm not talking about any of that. I am talking about strong people that are standing up in their purpose and saying, you will either give me what I have coming, or I will vote you out, period. It's that simple, and everything, this is, and when I say it's that simple, I mean that statement or that stand is that simple, because there is nothing simple about a system built on racial oppression. There's nothing simple about that, because what we really have to do is white supremacy is woven within the fabric of our country. So if you've ever had something that was woven, how do you pull that one string out without unraveling the whole thing?
Right.
I mean, good gracious.
Right.
So we do it by taking ourselves and doing what we can do to make ourselves successful. And then we find like-minded people and we band together with those people and we work with them. There's some folks out there who just don't know where to go for help.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, if they don't know where to go for help, call the justice movement.
There you go. Oh, go ahead and talk about the justice movement, girl.
Call the justice movement. You know, the justice movement is we are not a program. We are absolutely a movement. And what we do is we're organizers. See, in the city of Durham, there are so many not-for-profits or community-based organizations, that do everything. The problem is people don't know about them. They don't know what they do. And I'm talking about people like us, BJ, who we don't realize that something is out there. So we go and we create it again.
Right.
So you have a lot of duplication of services. And when you have a lot of duplication of services, then you have a lot of fighting over the same funding dollars.
There you go. Amen. Keep going.
Okay. You're fighting over the same funding dollars, and that's a problem. Another thing is that when there are not funding dollars, because oftentimes when Black people have problems, we get programs. We don't get systems or money. We get programs. What happens is those programs, they come in, they are so underfunded that there's no way to make them sustainable. Now, I understand when people say, you know what, if I can just help one person, I'll be all right. If I can just help one person. And you know what? That's fantastic.
Right.
But it's not sustainable. When we help one person, but we've got 1,000 people going into poverty every day. I'm no mathematician, but that just doesn't add up.
Right.
There's no way that we can make a significant change when that's the way that we're going about a problem. We have to be able to do something at scale. We have to be able to do something where we can actually help a large number of people at one time. So one of the things, what the justice movement is doing, first of all, Steve Chalmers, ex-police chief in Durham, and myself, both of us, we got together. Elaine, before Mayor Elaine O'Neill, before she was mayor, came and met with Henry McCoy, who is the founder of Hayti Reborn, and said, hey, we have a lot of problems going on in this community related to crime. And I'm really, Henry being a lead economist, she's like, I'm really curious about what your take is on this. What can we do for this? And Steve and I were brought together as well because of our professional expertise. And we all looked at it and decided that we wanted to approach it from exactly like I told you before, and as dealing with the root cause of the problems instead of focusing on what individuals feel is the problem. So we got together, we got community-based organizations and law enforcement organizations. We pulled everybody together at the same table. And instead of focusing on who was responsible for what being wrong, we focused on the solution and what piece everybody brought to the table. And then all of these community-based organizations with all of the things they offer in the community, we pulled them in and looked at what they brought to the table. And so that way we were able to have an approach that included the entire city. everyone, law enforcement, social justice organizations, citizens in the community, everyone together. And then the justice movement, what we do basically through this system of networks and these organizations, we put together a network of services so that now there's one door. You can walk in that one door and say, I need this. I'm looking for this. This is what, and so we did that. We made everything where it's a one-stop shop. We also solicited funding from the city and the county so that we could help bring community-based organizations that were willing to work in this network of where we could cut down on some of this duplication of services. What we did was we solicited funding so that we could help them build to capacity. Right. And we wouldn't have to worry about the fact that they couldn't service large numbers of individuals in the community. Right. So that was very important to us. We did that as well. The Hayti Reborn justice movement, we're like conductors. You know, you can be at a symphony, and if you get there at the very beginning when everyone's warming up, right? Right. Everyone's warming up, they're tuning their instruments. It sounds like mass chaos. Right. All right. Until the conductor gets up front with his baton and he taps his baton. Right. And when he raises it, all of these different pieces come together and they meld together into beautiful music. That's what the justice movement is trying to do for the community-based organizations in the city of Durham, and therefore have it where they better serve individuals out in the community. Yes. BJ, one of the things that the guys would always tell me when they would come back to prison and I'd ask what happened, so many times people said to me, you know, boss, I just couldn't do it, Miss Jones. I couldn't do it. And I'm like, why? They're like, I would go to one person and they tell me go somewhere else. And then I'd go to that place and that place would tell me this is the place you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be over there. And then I'd go over there and they tell me I need a driver's license in order to get this. But then I would go to the driver's license place and they tell me I need what was at the other place in order to get my driver's license. So you're talking about a system where it is not designed for these people to win. Right. And the same way that Matt and Molly or whomever that have parents that go and advocate for them and say, you know what, you know, my kid just needs this. I know that this is something you have in the system, right, that is not being widely publicized. Right. I know it is. So I am going to demand that you provide it for mine as well. Right. That is what at the level of advocacy that is needed, especially for justice involved individuals. Yeah. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I'm just glad to be a part of it. Cause I mean, when I think about it and I tell people about it, I said, you know, because for law enforcement from my lane is like, you know, you're calling social work or you're calling somebody, you know, trying to help and they're like, oh, can't do it. Well, who can I call? I don't know. Call this person, you know, and you doing your best trying to help this person on the street sometimes. And so they're like, well, you know what? I'm gonna go back to what I know what to do. That's you know, right. How to do. And I get that. I mean, I would be frustrated as much as stress. I mean, you got, and then God knows, talk about probation and parole on your neck, trying to get you to do stuff. And so now this thing right here is like you walk in the door, BJ needs to get her driver's license, BJ need to get her GED, and all I got to do is be assessed, figure out to help me to be a successful, because all we just need, and like you said, the country is built on the fact that if you go to prison, you have given your debt based on what you have done. You should be able to just get out of there and go do what you're going to do, especially if you're going to do better. That's all, because that's all we want. But we got to make it easy for you to do better. You know, well, And the system is not designed,
Yeah.
it is intentionally not designed for it to be easy. If you look back to the beginnings of law enforcement, I mean,
Yeah.
the first sheriffs and police were slave catchers.
Yeah.
I mean, so,
Yeah.
you know, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, we're talking about a long line of
Long, yeah, long.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm
and
glad.
we know it because
Yeah.
those of us that were in it
Mhm.
still had to endure it.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation too that I'm trying
Well,
to have.
that's a
in my head.
conversation. We don't even have time for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we that's another one. But yeah, I'm glad you had a chance to plug the justice movement. I'm honored to be a part of it, and even if you know I may not be able to be there as much as I need to be there, but I just the fact that you're willing to let me be in that space and be a part of this because it's going to be a game changer.
Well, you know,
Gonna be a
there's so
game
many
changer.
things that there's so many different, especially being a part of Hayti Reborn is great because what we do is we attack the problem on a multitude of different angles,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to attack it socioeconomically. We have to attack it where we help at home. We have to attack it by providing educational opportunities and not necessarily 4-year degrees.
Yeah.
We have to attack it where people can go and get a certification and do a job that they love.
Right.
Even if it means going to school and being an entrepreneur, hey, that's fantastic because that's your passion. We're all better at what we're good at.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important. So we've done a lot of work around here to try and get land to build structures on so that we can bring the Black community back into downtown Durham or, you know, here back to even Hayti, which we know we lost when the highway came through.
Yeah.
I mean, our people are due. And for those of us, you know, are we our brother's keeper? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for those of us who can, we do. If you know better, you do better.
Do better.
So
cool.
That's what it is for us to do.
I know it is for us to do. It's for us to reach back and pull somebody up and keep it moving. But before, thanks for. I'm so glad you got to do the justice movement because I really wanted you to plug that in. I know we talked about a little bit of webinar, but I want this one to be kind of recorded so people want to learn more about it. They can. But I think for me, the only thing I want to say about it is people had to pay. I want people to pay attention as to who the co-directors are, co-executor. That's a warden and a police chief. And I have to quote this, and I've been using it to L.A. Said it a couple of times, and it made, when you said it out loud, it made perfect sense of the work that I'm doing, right? You said they made a mistake and let me come in and figure out how the system worked.
Oh, they should have never done that. They never should have done that. Because what they did was, you said a warden and a police chief. Well, actually what they did was they let a poor little Black girl and a poor little Black boy grow up to be a warden and a police chief, figure out the system, who also has a love and a propensity for social justice. I'm also the chairperson of the Southern Coalition of Social Justice. So that on the community advisory board at the sheriff's office, I mean, it's all justice. And that's the reason why it's the justice movement. It's all justice.
It's all, but it's just the fact when people hear and think about it and look at it, listen, that's a warden and a police chief helping individuals who are returning from, because you don't, depending on where your head is in the space, and you're like, that don't even sound right, but I mean, when some people might, you made a police chief and a warden are helping people coming back out, trying to make sure it don't sound right. But see that just says you don't understand what this is about. This is about
absolutely not. I mean, BJ, it's because right is right. Right is right and wrong is wrong.
This is about human beings.
Justice is justice. It's not just justice when a person looks a certain way or when they're or when they have a certain pedigree. That's not what it is. It's justice for everyone. And if that's not right, then those of us who have been fortunate enough and worked hard enough to get into position, it's up to us to make it right, to make it fair for everybody. Otherwise, we don't deserve to be there.
Yeah, yeah. Hello, I love it. Cool. So thank you. I've enjoyed it.
No, thank you.
This has been awesome. I love it. Yeah. And again, I'm glad to be a part of it. Glad you asked me to be a part of it. So thanks for coming on. And we've learned a lot. For those of you, we'll have a link to the justice movement so you can learn more about it. I have some information on when we release the podcast, so you'll be able to do the link. And hopefully for those of you, especially for those of you who live in the Bull City, if you want to get involved, we definitely would love for you to be involved with the justice movement to help this make this to make this thing successful. It's going to be successful because we've got two leaders in the position. We've got individuals who are working there that are passionate about it and want to do that. And I think that's what it's all about. It's about the love, it's hard work, and we're trying to do that. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. And for those of you that, again, who are usually my regulars that tune in, thank you very much. Hope you have enjoyed. LA, before we go, anything, your last comment before we get out of here? Anything you want to say?
No, nothing at all. I mean, stand in your purpose. That's it. Stand in your purpose. Do something. If all of us would do one thing,
there you go.
Do one thing, just what we can do. Don't worry about how big the problem is.
That's right.
If we all just lift our piece, BJ, we got this.
There you go. I love it. What, some way in there gonna be the title of the podcast. So let's just so you know. Somewhere in there gonna be the podcast. So thanks everybody for joining us. And as always, stay well, stay safe, peace.